I still remember the night my heart cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, the way ice breaks under soft pressure. It was 11:02 p.m. I was sitting at my kitchen table, packing little Hawaiian gift bags for my grandchildren, when my phone buzzed. I wiped the tape from my fingers, pushed my reading glasses up my nose, and opened the message. It was from my son, Nathan, and it said, "Mom, you won't be joining us. Tanya prefers a family-only trip. You've already done your part by paying." I stared at the screen as if the words might rearrange themselves into something kinder. They didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't cry either. I just set the phone down and listened to the low hum of my refrigerator, the only sound in a house that had suddenly never felt so empty. For 3 years, I had planned that vacation. After my husband James passed away, I promised myself I would take the family to Hawaii, the place he took me for our honeymoon. I wanted the grandchildren to see the ocean he loved. I wanted us all together, laughing again, sharing memories, and maybe healing old wounds. But that message told me the truth I had been trying not to see. They didn't want my presence, only my money. As I looked around the kitchen, I felt foolish. On the table sat sunscreen bottles I'd labeled for each grandchild. Beside them were tiny gift bags, filled with keychains that said, "Aloha" and "Grandma loves you." And near my chair lay the small duffel bag I had packed for myself, 2 sundresses, my favorite sandals, a framed photo of James, and a lavender candle I wanted us to light together on the beach. None of it mattered now. It wasn't just this text. Tanya had been pushing me out for years, gently but intentionally. Holidays at her mother's house, family photos where I somehow didn't fit, moments where she spoke over me, corrected me, or acted like I was an extra chair in the room, present but unnecessary. Still, I believed Nathan would defend me. The same boy who once drew me as his hero in a school project. The same boy who used to bring me pink tulips every March. But now he was a stranger sending me instructions like a polite business memo. "You've already done your part." Those words kept echoing in my mind. Later that night, I walked to my old laptop and opened the travel fund I'd saved for slowly, painfully, faithfully. Over $21,000. All from my own sacrifices. I hovered over the button that said freeze account. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing a list, not of places, not of plans, but of people. Women I knew who had been forgotten by their own families. Women who were invisible in their own homes. For the first time that night, I asked myself a question I had never dared to ask. What if the wrong people were going on this trip? The morning after that message, I woke before the sun. Not because I had slept well, far from it, but because my mind wouldn't let me rest. I kept hearing those words over and over. "You've already done your part." As if love were a bill I had finally paid off. I wandered through the house like a ghost. I folded blankets that didn't need folding, wiped counters that were already clean, and straightened picture frames I had straightened the night before. It was a strange kind of numbness, not pain, not anger, just a hollow, heavy silence settling inside me. That afternoon, I checked my email, and there it was. Final travel confirmation. I clicked it without thinking. 8 names. 8 plane tickets. 8 guests checked into the villa. Nathan. Tanya. Their children. Tanya's parents. Her sister. Her sister's boyfriend. My name wasn't there. Not even in tiny letters at the bottom. Not even as a spare guest. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately excluded. A strange calm washed over me, like the quiet before a storm that never comes. I closed the laptop gently, as if it were something fragile. Later that evening, my phone rang. Tanya's name appeared on the screen. Not Nathan's. Her voice was unusually cheerful, bright in that artificial way people sound when they want something. "We're just packing up. I hope everything's settled on your end, money-wise." Money-wise. The only wise she seemed to care about. I asked her softly, "Is there anything you want me to bring for the kids? Any snacks for the flight?" She laughed lightly. Oh no, Marilyn. You don't need to bring anything. Actually, we were thinking you should stay home this time. You know, rest. Take care of yourself. Rest. That word felt like a polite shove out the door. When the call ended, I stood at the kitchen window, staring at the birdbath James installed 20 years ago. Water sat still inside it, not a single ripple. I felt like that water. Silent. Unmoved. Not because I didn't care, but because caring had stopped making sense. The next morning, I opened the fireproof lockbox where I kept the documents for the travel fund. There it was, printed in bold letters. Account holder, Marilyn Rose Monroe. Authorized users, none. Everything was in my name. Every booking. Every card. Every payment. For years I had trusted them so much, I never thought twice about being the sole owner. But now it felt like the only piece of power I had left. And I realized something with painful clarity. They didn't forget me. They expected me to stay quiet. I opened the banking app, scrolled to the travel account, and stared at the freeze account button again. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I gave them one last chance. Just one. I sent Nathan a simple message. Let me know if you need help with the kids' bags or any snacks for the flight. I watched the little read mark appear under the message. Minutes passed. Then hours. No reply. No acknowledgement. Not even a thanks, Mom. That was when I finally understood. Their silence wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And I needed to make mine. By the time the third day arrived, my decision was no longer a question, it was a certainty. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I simply sat in James's old chair by the window, the one he used to call the lookout, and waited for the truth to settle fully inside me. I wasn't part of their vacation. I was only part of their budget. Around 6 a.m., I opened my laptop again. The house was still dark, and the soft glow of the screen lit up my hands, these old hands that had cooked, cleaned, held, and sacrificed more than they ever received in return. I logged into the travel account. My name sat at the top. Account owner, Marilyn Rose Monroe. Status, active. Linked cards, 6. All drawing from my fund. I clicked the settings. There it was again, freeze mode. A small description beneath it read, pauses all outgoing charges. Linked cards will be disabled until reactivated by the account owner. That meant me. Still, I didn't press it. Not until I checked something else first. I opened my calendar and circled their departure date in red. Their flight was scheduled to leave at 10:45 a.m. If they arrived 2 hours early, as airports require, then the perfect moment to freeze everything would be around 8:15 a.m., right when they'd be checking in, confident that everything was fully paid. Right when they least expected it. But before I made the final decision, I needed to be sure, truly sure, that I wasn't acting out of anger. So I gave Nathan one last chance. At 7:10 a.m., I sent him a message. Good morning. Just checking, do the kids need anything last minute? I'm here if you need help. He read it. I saw the little icon. And then, nothing. No, thank you. No, we're all set. No, love you, Mom. Just silence. A silence that said more than any argument or insult could ever say. That was my answer. I opened the banking app again. My finger hovered over the freeze button. There was no tremble, no hesitation, no guilt, just clarity. Then I tapped it. A message popped up. Are you sure you want to activate freeze mode? Yes. Another message. All linked cards will be disabled immediately. Yes. Then it was done. No alert would go to them. No warning. No notification. They would find out exactly the way I found out I wasn't invited, quietly, painfully, undeniably. For the first time in months, I felt my shoulders relax. I made myself a cup of peppermint tea, sat in the lookout chair, and watched the morning light slip through the curtains. I didn't feel revenge. I felt relief. Eventually, I opened a notebook and wrote a new title at the top of a blank page. People who deserve to come with me. Under it, I listed the names of women I knew who had been overlooked, unappreciated, or used, women like me. Women who gave and gave until they almost disappeared. Carol, Louise, Beverly, Frances, Nora, Denise. By the time I wrote the sixth name, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Because maybe this trip wasn't ruined. Maybe I had just been planning it for the wrong people. The days leading up to their flight felt strangely peaceful. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't warn anyone. I simply lived my life as though nothing was happening, because in a way, nothing was. They had already removed me from their world long before I pressed that button. On the morning of their departure, I woke up early, made myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the table with my old chipped mug, the same one Nathan decorated for me when he was 9. I held it carefully, tracing the faded paint with my thumb, remembering the boy he once was. A boy who loved me. A boy who saw me. Not the man sending me cold messages today. At exactly 8:15 a.m., I imagined them arriving at the airport with matching luggage, wide smiles, and an attitude of quiet entitlement. I imagined Tanya walking ahead like she owned the place, Nathan dragging the kids behind him, and her parents fussing over their seats and snacks. None of them suspecting anything. At 8:27 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Hey Mom, getting an error at check-in. Can you check the travel account real quick? I placed the phone face down on the table. 5 minutes later, another message came. Mom, they're saying the card was declined, multiple times. Please look. I didn't move. Then the calls began. One ring. Then another. Then back-to-back calls like a desperate drumbeat. Voicemail after voicemail sank into the phone's memory. Mom, please, just pick up. Something's wrong with the car rental too. We can't check into the villa. They're saying the payment bounced. Mom, where are you? The kids are freaking out. I listened to none of them. Silence was finally working in my favor. Around 9:40 a.m., a voicemail arrived with a different tone, low, panicked, embarrassed. Mom, I don't know what you did. If this is because of the text, can we please talk? Just talk. Talk. Not apologize. Not take responsibility. Just talk, now that their plans were collapsing. I set the phone aside and stepped outside into the garden. The air was fresh, cool, and honest, more honest than the people blowing up my phone. I watched a small bird hop along the fence. Simple. Unbothered. Free. At 10:45 a.m., their flight took off. But they had nowhere to stay when they landed. Because that villa, those tickets, those bookings, they weren't theirs. They were mine. Around noon, the calls stopped, leaving only silence and a single message from Nathan. Look, maybe we messed up. Maybe things got out of hand. But we can fix this. Just unlock the account. Please. Fix this? He only wanted the money. That was all they had ever wanted. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That afternoon, the refund notifications began rolling in one by one: the villa, the rental car, the luau tickets, the private chef, the excursions. My travel account slowly filled back up, dollar by dollar. And with every refund, I felt a little lighter. Because for the first time in a long time, the money I sacrificed wasn't being used to buy my place in a family that didn't want me. It was coming back to me. For something better. When the last refund notification appeared on my screen, I closed my laptop and rested my hands on its warm surface. For the first time in years, I felt like my life was finally back in my own hands. Not shared. Not borrowed. Not taken for granted. Mine. I walked to my bedroom, opened the drawer where I kept my old notebook, and flipped to a clean page. At the top, in big letters, I wrote, "The Forgotten Women Trip." Under it were the names I had listed earlier, women whose lives had been filled with giving and giving, yet receiving so little in return. Carol, who hadn't traveled in 20 years. Beverly, who spent her life caring for a brother with dementia. Frances, who raised her grandchildren but was never invited to their celebrations. Nora, who once told me the hardest part of aging wasn't pain, it was becoming invisible. Lucille, my old neighbor who had never seen the ocean in person. And Delia, who once drove me to the clinic when I was hurt and refused to take a penny for gas. They were like me, quiet women, loyal women, women the world passed by without noticing. I dialed the first number. "Hello," Carol answered, hesitant. "Hi Carol, it's Marilyn," I said gently. "I have a strange question for you. How would you like to go to Hawaii with me?" There was complete silence on the line. Hawaii," she whispered, as if afraid the word might disappear. "With me?" "Yes, with you. And a few others." She didn't speak for several seconds. Then I heard her breath catch, like someone trying not to cry. "Why me, Marilyn?" "Because someone should take you somewhere beautiful at least once," I said softly. "And because you deserve it." Every call went just like that. Shock, disbelief, followed by a soft, emotional yes. Not one of them asked, "Why aren't you going with your family?" Not one of them asked, "Who's paying?" Not one of them assumed I was doing it out of pity. They only said thank you. Not with entitlement, but with genuine gratitude. I contacted the travel agent and rebooked everything under my name. This time, not a single card was linked to anyone else. Every bed, every meal, every activity, it all belonged to my group. A trip for women who had never been chosen. Over the next few days, I went shopping again, but this time with a smile. I bought colorful scarves, flip-flops, small journals for each woman, and a beautiful walnut frame for James's photograph. He had always been my partner in adventure, and I wanted him with me, just in a different way than I had originally planned. The day before the trip, I packed my suitcase again. But this time, there was no heaviness. No forced hope. No quiet ache. Only excitement. Because the moment those refunds came back, something more valuable returned with them. My freedom. And I intended to use it well. When the day of our departure arrived, I felt a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. No trembling hands. No heavy heart. No pretending. Just 6 women standing beside me at the airport, smiling shyly, holding onto their bags like they were holding onto a long-lost piece of themselves. For once, I wasn't standing behind anyone. I wasn't the invisible grandmother or the replaceable wallet. I was simply me. We boarded the plane together. Not rushed. Not dismissed. Not tolerated. Chosen. When we arrived in Hawaii, the warm air wrapped around us like a soft embrace. The sound of the waves whispered the welcome I had longed for, but never received, from the people I loved most. The villa was even more beautiful than I remembered from the pictures. Palm trees swayed outside. The ocean glimmered through the wide glass doors. And when the women stepped inside, each one gasped softly, like life was giving them something back. That first evening, we gathered around the long table. I placed James's framed photo right at the center. No one questioned it. No one rolled their eyes. No one asked me to move it aside. Instead, they smiled and nodded, honoring him simply because he mattered to me. And that alone brought tears to my eyes. Every night, we ate together. We laughed, really laughed, the kind that shakes your entire chest. We shared stories we'd never told anyone. Not because we wanted sympathy, but because, for once, we felt safe enough to be honest. On the 3rd night, we lit candles, one for each woman, one for the memories she carried, and one for the ones she wished she could let go of. When my turn came, I held the little matchstick and whispered. This was supposed to be a family trip, but maybe it always belonged to us instead. The women murmured softly, touched, understanding without me having to explain a single detail. Then I lit the candle beside James's photo and felt his presence, not as a painful ache, but as a gentle warmth. I walked down to the shore after dinner, barefoot, the waves brushing my ankles. The women followed behind me, each carrying a seashell or ribbon or tiny note with a name or memory. We formed a soft circle on the sand. For the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt found. When I returned home a week later, the ocean scent still in my suitcase and laughter still in my ears, I saw an email waiting from Nathan. Long, apologetic in tone, but not in truth. His message ended with a request. Could you return the deposit we gave for the trip? We're in a financial bind. I didn't reply, because sometimes silence is the clearest answer a mother can give. I closed the laptop, made myself a glass of iced tea, and looked out at the sunlight touching the wind chimes James once hung. In that moment, I understood something final and freeing. I wasn't abandoned. I simply outgrew the people who never saw me. And in their absence, I finally discovered the family I was meant to have. Women who listened. Women who appreciated. Women who carried scars like mine. Women who became my chosen family. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And that was the real beginning, not the end.